Welcome to another episode of Millennials to Millionaires. I'm Alicia Ace West.
I'm Daniel King Sold.
And today we've got another special guest, and he is the CEO, founder of Get Fresh Company. If you've seen some of like the dope, cool people on Instagram, you've probably seen them wearing his clothes. He has a couple of different shops. His name is Jebril, aka Fresh. Since we just discussed, like, not many people. It's crazy. Some people don't even know my name is Alicia. They'll be like, oh, it's Ace. I'm like, it's also Alicia. Like, that's the government name. That's what I was born with. But welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
So like I was saying, you have Get Fresh Company, and you've been able to build this over, like, how many years? When did this start?
It's been 8 years.
8 years. That's crazy.
Almost
First
a
of all,
decade.
Yeah, time flies.
It's crazy.
But it's been so successful that you even were able to open up a new location. So originally started on Queen West.
Correct.
And you also have the Square One.
Square One's no longer there.
I had a feeling. Yeah. But you did. You were able to accomplish it.
We got there. Yeah.
So just let's speak about how you decided to come up with this company that's been able to just be successful over these 8 years. Like, what is Get Fresh? Why did it start?
Get Fresh was a childhood dream of mine when I was 15 years old. I always had a dream of owning a clothing store. And I don't know, it was just the only thing I could think of as an entrepreneur. I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I'm like, I'm going to have a clothing store. I'm going to get all the coolest brands from all over the world, bring them to the store and get everybody fresh. So, you know, that's pretty much what I worked on doing when I was a kid. I would always buy and sell clothes within school. It's kind of how I made money. My mother turned me into a hustler when I was younger. She would always be like, all right, well, I'd be like, Mom, I want a pair of Air Forces. She's like, how much are they? $100. She'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Here's 50.
Work for the rest.
Figure it out. And she'd be like, you want to call your dad for the rest? I'm like, don't know how that's going to happen. So she'd like, figure it out. So, you know, I'd take the $50, try to invest it in something else. Or I'd, you know, try to go to the store, try to get the employee discount, buy them at the discounted price, bring them to school, sell them at full retail, whatever. And that's kind of like how the whole thing came about.
Mm-hmm. And so when did you really decide, because Get Fresh is your own brand, like you're really creating these clothing, right? So when did you not just want to have a retail shop where you work with all these brands, but to create your very own?
I never wanted to make clothes ever, to be honest with you. That was never something that I wanted to do. But I would go to these trade shows. You know, when I opened Get Fresh, I was 25 years old. So when I go to these trade shows in Vegas and I'm going to speak to all these brands, I know about these brands a lot earlier than anyone else knows. And I'll be going to they'd have a little booth. But new brands always have the most, they have the highest chest, let's say, right? So I'd be going to talk to them like, hey, man, my name is Jebril Jalloh. I'm coming from Toronto. I got this store downtown right in the heart of the fashion district. And 8 years ago, Toronto wasn't what it is today. Yeah. So when I'm talking to them, no one was really ever.
They weren't really excited.
They're like, where? Like, who?
Toronto,
and they're looking
where?
at me like, young black guy, braids. Like, where's your boss?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where's your boss? Where's your mom? Where's your dad? Like, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? And I would know everything about the brand because obviously I do my backs, you know, get all the education, everything about it, and tell them all about it. I'm like, yo, this is what I feel like I could do for you in the city. You know, the city's coming up. We're about to run the world in a couple of years. And everyone's looking at me like, okay, please. And I'd keep going around to all these brands, and one or two would give me an opportunity. And then after a while, I was just sick and tired of being told no. And I'm like, yo, I'm just going to make my own clothes. And I just, you know, I started on that journey, and 5 years later, here we are today.
How hard was it at first to just try to find those, be able to find the people, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like the manufacturers.
And it was difficult. You know, I went on a journey. I went to, after I left that Vegas trip, I was like, you know what? I'm going to drive to LA. Okay. People don't know this, but LA has the biggest fashion district in the world. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go to LA and I'm going to figure it out. Packed up the car, me and a couple of my homies that I brought to Vegas with me. Went there, you know, took a bunch of different manufacturing meetings, and they're all like, yeah, you got to make, 1,000 pieces of this T-shirt and 2,000 pieces.
Like minimum quantities.
Yeah.
Minimum.
And that's a lot. That's pressure to like see those numbers and have to invest in them.
$20 a piece, $40 a piece, $50 a piece.
It adds up very quickly.
You know what I mean? I'm like, and you're talking about one style. So if I got a store 1,000 square feet, this is something to sit on. This is one hanger, one rack. Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So, what happened is I found a hat manufacturer over there. And then I was like, I'm going to make hats. I'm gonna come up with this idea. I traveled a lot at this point already, and I was like, I want to be able to represent Toronto when I travel without representing a sports team, because I wasn't really a big sports fan. So I didn't want to wear a Blue Jays hat, and then someone comes up to me, start talking to me about the Blue Jays game last night, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. You know, Maple Leafs, or I was like a fake Raptors fan, like not fake Raptors fan, fake basketball fan.
Yeah.
I just watch it in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? So I hated that. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna make a hat with the airport code on it. You know, everyone can relate to that. Around the world, people know, like, if you travel to the city or whatever, you know, okay, cool, YYZ. And that was the first manufacturer that I actually did business with in Los Angeles. And that worked out well. You know, he was like, your minimum order quantity is 30 pieces. I was like, perfect.
Oh, that's blessed.
Amazing.
You know, and
just in case it like doesn't work out.
Exactly. And we went from, you know, 30 pieces to ordering 3,000 pieces to 10,000 pieces to 25,000 pieces. That hat really started the whole Get Fresh company brand, you know, and that's what kind of grew us to be where we are today.
No, that's what's up. When we were going back and forth on Instagram, you were telling me that real estate also was a passion of yours at one point, and you wanted to go down that route, but you chose fashion instead. So can you tell me a little bit about like what about real estate was enticing to you, and why you decided to choose to go
the way?
I was a very curious kid my whole life, and so I would always read the newspaper, and the business section was always the section that always, you know, caught my eye. And I was always reading about these guys, you know, over in the US or whatever, these developers like building these properties and selling these properties. And then I watched, there was this I forget his name, Kawasaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah. Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah, and this was like back then. Yeah, and he's like, you know, in the last 5-6 years, I feel like he got very popular. This is I'm like 15. Yeah, you know, 14, and I'm listening to it. I'm listening to the commercials on the radio. Come to this summit and this.
I actually went to one of those. It was funny.
Yeah, and I remember listening. So I would do research and like, who is this guy? What does he do? And then like I was you know, I always knew about Donald Trump back in the day. You know, he was a big figure in hip hop as this like real estate mogul, right? Yeah. So I was always like, yo, like, what is this? And then I started doing research about it, and I'm like, yo, this is it. This is booming, right? And like I'm a high school dropout, so I never, to go to real estate school, I guess at this time you didn't have to have a diploma, from high school. So I was like, okay, perfect, this works. And unfortunately, at the time of my life of when that happened, you know, my mother passed away when I was younger, around the same time. Well, this is before my mother passed away before I wanted to go to school for this. But my life was a little crazy. You know, where I grew up was like a war zone. You know, I lived at Southside Jane at this time, and talking about murders every day, shooting every day, things going on every day. It was just really hard. I lost a lot of people in that time, and it was really hard for me to focus, like open up a textbook and focus. It was like impossible for me at that time. I was still, you know, going through so much trauma and all that. So I was like, in the time I was in my life, I was like, I got to go to school. I got to take these 3 tiers. It's going to take me 2 years. Like, I need to make money today. Like, I have to make money right now. I got, you know, I've lived by myself at this time. Yeah, you got bills. Right? You know, I've been living by myself since I was 15 years old. So it was like, it was really hard for me to be able to navigate the whole school thing. So I switched that and started selling clothes from the trunk of my car. And then I rolled that into where we're at today. And
so do you actually own your Queen West location, or
no,
do you just
rent
it?
I rent it, yeah.
And so speaking on that, you were able to launch a store in Square One. It was a beautiful store also. And I know that probably like the last time we spoke, you started talking about how much overhead costs that the Square One was costing you. So evidently, like, you were like, this ain't even worth it.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was a phenomenal moment for me. You know, my life changed for the better when I moved to Mississauga. I moved to Mississauga when I was about 18 years old. And that probably saved my life, to be honest with you. And so, you know, I was always hustling in Mississauga and that, you know, her interior on Burnhamthorpe area, and 5 and 10.
5 and 10.
You know, popping up my trunk like everywhere all over Mississauga. So it was always a dream of mine. I lived on Kenneth Crescent, and my view would look over to Square One.
Shout out to the Kenneth building.
He actually motivated me too. Kenneth, he's actually a massive developer. But anyway, so I'm always looking at that building, and I'm like, yo, like one day, I still have my dream as a kid of opening a store. I'm like, maybe one day I could do something in there. You know? And Square One was the only mall that actually had all the dope streetwear stores in Ontario. So I was like, yo, one day I'm gonna do this. And then the opportunity came, and I made it happen. So it was like, all right, cool.
It's off.
Check.
Exactly.
Take it off the vision board. Next.
Exactly. And we did it major. We came to the store. It was 3,600 square feet.
That's
we
huge.
put a bar in there. Square One's never had. When I brought it to them, I'm like, yo, I'm gonna put a bar in there, Remy Martin bar. We're gonna be able to offer all our clients, cocktails when they come in and be able to do events and all that. And they were like, they've never, Oxford's never really done anything like that before. And they were like, we had one person championing for us all the time, Navita. Shout out Navita. And she was like, no, we're gonna do this. Like, this is what we need. We're trying to move forward. Yeah. And the green lit it. So it was like amazing. If you came to the opening, you were able to have, glass at Remy and shop and have a good little vibe. And it was like the first time, I'd say probably in the last 10, 15 years, there was any black representation in that mall in terms of ownership.
That's key. That must have been like a really full circle moment for you, to be able to open that up. I definitely know those dreams, and it comes full circle. Now, what do you think about, like, from a business perspective, because you're in the retail space, Amazon is obviously a huge online company. Do you feel like with COVID, without COVID, that online should be like the main path
in the forefront? Do you think that people need to really invest in that, or
1,000%? This is the future. They've been telling us this since we were in high school. Like, the future is going to be tech. There's going to be robots that are going to take over all these jobs, and it's a reality. Now we're here in 2020, and yes, definitely, if you were in the retail space, it doesn't matter what you're selling, you have to be online. I like both sides of it because I love creating experiences. Yeah. I've been to several of my events, right? So for me, creating experiences and having my feet on the ground and being able to show our community and build something for our city to be like, look what we're building up here. Because sometimes, like, for me, I'm old school. I don't really shop online. I like to go into a store, feel the material, get the vibe, try it on, get the vibe, get the energy of the brand or whatever I'm buying. So I do both. But yeah, we're definitely leaning more, obviously, to investing a lot more into our online platform, more than we've ever had before.
And what made you really do the events? Because you've done so many events at Get Fresh. You always allow the community to come through and do their events as well. But then you've also done like pop-up events with restaurants within your Queen West community. Why do you feel like that's such an important thing to do? Because even though you have a retail store and this brand, you're really still a part of the community. You're help building that.
Well, I'll say this, like, people always call me a designer, a fashion guy, or this. It's bigger than fashion for me. Everything is bigger than fashion for me. So the events will really come down to, I've always wanted, other than real estate, one part of the business I wanted to do is, like, I wanted to do event planning. I always wanted to, like, I remember, like, reaching out to event planners, like, back in the day and be like, yo, can I intern? Can I help? Can I do this? And the answers I got were no. And then after a while, I was like, I'll just do it myself.
I'm gonna do it myself.
Right? So, we started that, me and a couple other guys, we started doing events, got my feet wet. And then I just seen how happy it made everyone. In Toronto, is such a young city. There wasn't a lot of events going on, a lot of opportunities. And, it was hard for, like, it was like only certain DJs would get hired and certain promoters would get hired. And I was like, I don't want that. I want, like, inclusion. I want to, like, put everybody on and kind of, like, spread this. I want to build this industry here. This director RT said something to me. I used to be a wardrobe stylist and I worked for him once, and I asked him, like, yo, why don't you, like, go to LA or New York or, like, Chicago or something and be this massive director? And he goes, if I leave here, who hires the gaffer, the lighting person, who hires all these people? Like, who creates the industry for all these people to have jobs and then for them to create
the experiences and then even be able to, like, go to bigger companies or outside.
Exactly. And that really resonated with me. So I told myself, I said, I'm have to create a landscape for myself and for my city to be able to have more opportunities and to grow that and living on, like, I lived at Jane and Weston, and, like, going to Eglinton West back in the day, little Jamaica, that was, like, the most amazing thing in the world. You know what I mean? All the clothing stores, the barbershops, the restaurants, and, like, Kitty's Caravana, like, it was just a vibe. Every time you hit that block was a vibe. And I really wanted to create that on Queen Street. And I wanted Toronto to, like, have an area where it's like you could be, young, no matter what race you are, whatever, you can come down there and, like, have this vibe and catch this opportunity. So whatever I feel like is missing in the city, I try to create my own version of it and put that on. So the restaurant pop-up you came to last summer, Banner Weekend, was called Yam. that was always a dream of mine. I'm like, I'm getting a little bit older. I don't love clubbing as much. I've been clubbing since 12.
Yeah.
I'm 32.
Whoa.
Right? So I've been outside a long time. So
You've been outside.
yeah. So I'm like, I want to just eat some bomb food, chill with my people, still do the bottle service thing, have drinks, whatever. But I don't really want to be in a club, sweaty, standing in a booth and not doing anything. So
it's not as fun anymore.
no, not to me at least.
Me either.
Yeah. So the whole goal was create that. You know, I pitched the idea to this restaurant and they were with it. You know, Remy Martin, that's my brand partner, and you know, we put that together, and we, you know, it was part of a whole weekend package that we did with the block party.
The block party was actually really fun as well. We need another one.
I know COVID just postponed that. I won't say ruined it, but it postponed that. Next year, hopefully, we'll see what happens. We'll be great. But yeah, the event thing is something that is really important to me, and brand partnerships is really important to me. So I like creating things. I like creating like these things so I can have a synergy between all my businesses.
And have them just all align.
Yeah, that's key. So you went from the trunk of your car to being able to open up a flagship store, go travel all around the world, and just kind of have your brand out there. So I would see you to be as a very successful person. Like, how do you define the word success?
I define the word success with freedom. You know, I measure everything with a level of freedom. So it's like, how much time can I have by myself? How much time can I spend with my grandmother or my siblings, or a significant other? You know, like how hard do, like, you know, everyone's like, work hard. And like, I worked hard. Like, I've been in survival mode. Like, you know, I've been homeless before. You know what I mean? So like, I've been in this survival mode for so long. And now I'm like I'm out of the survival mode. I'm in this growth mode. And like, I want to take my time more with things. I want to, like, you know, I have like little cousins that are like 10 now. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I haven't really spent any time with you this whole time. So for me, I measure success with like how much freedom that you can give yourself, how much freedom you have. To me, it's not money, because I know people who are like insanely rich and they're unhappy.
Yeah.
And they have no freedom, and they're a slave to their business. And to me, it's like, that's not successful. You know what I mean? You're just a worker at that point. Doesn't matter how much money you have.
And one thing that I've realized too is that money comes and goes. Like, money is always around, but it comes and goes. There's always ways we can do it, but it's
money's always in transit.
Yeah. So it's like, you don't want to necessarily live for just that, because there's so many other beautiful things in the world that you could be living for. What are some of like tips or tactics that you can share to building a successful brand that has longevity?
Take your time. You know, when you start, you always want to be up here. I want to be the best. I want to do this. I want to do that. Like, I would definitely say, you know, build your foundation and figure out what your business actually is, right? So a lot of people in fashion, they're like, I'm going to have the best jeans and the best socks and the best hat and the best sweater, and I'm going to have the craziest line. And like, you know, I don't blame them, because we grow up watching Gucci fashion shows, Prada fashion shows, and they're taking part in every type of fashion, like any garments that you can get. But I feel like, I tell anyone who comes around me and asks my advice, I say, listen, figure out what your thing is. You know, for me, I started with a hat. I focused on the hat. In my head, I'm going to make this hat the best hat. I'm going to sell the F out of this hat.
Yeah, you perfected that before jumped onto everything else.
So I would say, take your time and build step by step, you know, and it's very easy for people to, you know, distractions will really do you in. And it's very easy to like lose focus and have something that's working and then be like, oh, okay, I'm bored of that. I'm off of that. I'm going to do this now. But no, like, you're building a business. So keep that business going, maintain that business and grow that business. Get it to a point. Don't stop doing that, but wait till you can really afford to take a loss. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people will build something and then quickly take the equity, let's say, from that and put it towards something else. But that's like a risk. Right? Everything is a risk. So I'm not saying don't take risks, but it's not really a sure shot. When you have a sure shot, it's like, build that to a point, build your bank up to a point and that brand up to a point where you can take money from that and invest it in something else. And if that investment doesn't work, you're not like on your ass. Excuse my language, but you're not, you know what I mean? Like, you're not, and that's like the main thing. I see a lot of people making that mistake. Like, focus on one thing, build the one thing, be really good at the one thing, And then once you get that going, move on. Well, not move on, but you can diversify.
Branch out.
Yeah.
And once you're really good at something, a lot of other opportunities just fall into your lap naturally.
1,000%. I'll tell you, with Get Fresh, if you were going to say to me, 5 years, 10 years ago, like when this was just a dream in my head, and I would have my own sneaker with Puma. I could never tell you that.
Yeah.
I would have, brand partnerships with Toronto Raptors, and my collaborations would be sold in the now Scotiabank Arena. I still call it Air Canada Center, but the Scotiabank Arena right beside Drake's. You walk in the store. I brought my grandmother on that day, and it was the OVO shirt and the Get Fresh shirt right beside each other. Amazing. You know what I mean? And that was like the best feeling for me. So I could never tell you that was going to happen. We did partnerships with the NBA in Los Angeles for locker room, and like, the deal with Remy. I couldn't tell you all these things were going to happen. It was all in part of my vision of like, I want to have, I looked up to Jay-Z my whole life. I'm like, this guy's partnership with HP and this and that. And I'm like, I always wanted to
do that.
Yeah. To do that. So I was able to focus on this one thing, again, as I said, and build different pillars, like the events, the brand partnerships and all that. And, we have the type of brand partnerships we have. Like, we have some of the best brand partnerships anyone has in this country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we have this, we're signing the same deals that, not the same bag, but as like ball players and
athletes,
rappers,
artists,
and like,
all that other stuff.
you can ask anyone around me. I can't throw a ball. I can't run. No sports, but
you built it from having a vision about your store and your brand, and now they're all coming through. Well, we're definitely going to speak more about partnerships and more about the Get Fresh brand as well as you. I'm going to slide out. Twee's going to slide in. And yeah.
I'm subbing in now. We're back here with Jebril Get Fresh. We're going to dive a little bit more into brand partnerships and try to understand from a corporate perspective what it takes to sort of get those deals done. How do people go about structuring collabs and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I want to deal with Remy. Like, how do I get that?
Like, or get product in the ACC.
Yeah.
How do people go about doing that kind of thing?
I would say this. Now that I've done it, I have more of a know-how, but everything kind of happened. It just kind of happened. You know what I mean? I feel like, relationships are the number one thing. And, just working hard towards whatever you're doing. For me, as I said earlier, like, I was always a big fan of Jay-Z and everything he was doing. So I always, I feel like when you put things in your vision, they're always going to come to you.
Manifestation.
Exactly, right? So I'd say with Remy Martin, it was very natural. I'll tell you a little backstory how it started, and then I'll get into it. So I used to have, before the store was mine, it was a clothing store before, and there was a barbershop in the back. Okay. So one of my guys would always cut this one guy who'd come in. His name was Chris. He'd always come in, fly boy, whatever, you know what I mean? And me and him would always just chop it up about life or something. And then one day we just started talking about cognac. We started talking about different alcohols that we like and all that. And I just got back from New York. Jay-Z just dropped Douce.
Okay.
And you couldn't buy Douce anywhere but one liquor store in New York. I bought 2 bottles and I brought it back. And I drank one and I had another one. We just started talking about cognac and all the things he loves about it and alcohol and the history. And I was like, yo, hold on one second. I lived across the street at the time. I ran upstairs, grabbed this bottle, went back to the store and gave it to him.
That's love.
And I was like, yo, try this. Tell me what you think. Because he was like a connoisseur. So I'm like, I want to know, what your vibe is on all this. So try it. He goes, oh, man, you didn't have to do this. No, man, don't worry about it. I'm like, oh, man, try it. I really want it. Next time you come get your haircut, let's rap about it. Like, let me know.
Tell me what you think, yeah.
He came by a week later. And, we never talk about what we do, anything. I'm not like the first person to be like, I do this. What do you do? We just chop it up. He came by a week later. I was doing an event for this brand out of Montreal, like a pop-up event. And he calls me. He goes, yo, you at the spot? I'm like, yeah. He goes, all right, open the front door. I'm going to be there in a minute. Just come out to the car. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And he opened his trunk and he just hands me this big box. Case of Dom, case of Mo, case of Henny, case of Henny XO. Wow. And I'm just like,
all this for one bottle?
No, I'm not even think. I'm just like, I didn't even think that yet. I was like, yo, what's going on here? You know what I'm saying? He's like, boom. He goes, yo, I'll be back. I'll see you next week for my haircut. I'm like, yo, but what's all this for? He goes, oh, it's for your event. So I'm like, what do you mean it's for my event? Well, you bought me liquor for my event? He goes, no. And then he gives me his card. He goes, I work for Chart & Hobbs, which is the agency for LVMH.
Oh, wow.
Random.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And then the relationship just went from there. You know, then I started coming up with some ideas of like, I'm like, once I found out what he did, you know, marketing manager, sales, all that, I was like, yo, you know, my community primarily drinks these beverages.
Yeah,
this is what we
exactly,
consume. So I'm like, let's work something out where I can help you push this out. And, you know, that relationship went from that day to working with the LVMH catalog to him going to Remy and then him putting me in more of a power position with Remy. So I put all my work in with Hennessy. You see what I could do. And like, I won't lie, I was making no money at all. But he was helping me create value to my store, to my business, and to my clients. Now you come into my store buying a t-shirt, I'm pouring you a glass of Dom P. Some people never tried Dom Perignon before. Some people never tried Hennessy XO before.
It's an experience as you talk about.
Exactly. So we created that, and then from there, you know, when it got to Remy, that's when the bag situation came in. Contract, boom. This is what you got to. This is what I would like you to do. And really, what he wanted me to do is like just keep doing what you're doing.
That's it.
That was my contract.
Yeah.
This is how much we're gonna give you. This is this. Boom, boom, boom. I signed the dotted line, and it started from there. And then from there, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, who else can I work with? You know what I'm saying? Like, now you're like, yo, I just did. Like, I'm doing. This is my liquor deal. Like how rappers and all that. Like, you know, when you're black and you compare everything to rappers.
Yeah,
of course. Those are the two lanes that you take.
You got your clothing.
Unfortunately,
you got your clothing. You got your liquor.
Right? I'm lit. So I'm like, okay, cool.
Need some kicks.
Exactly. So I went to. I'm just giving you a quick backstory so you know how it happened. So my boy worked for Trap Star London. He's based out of New York, right? And this is my like ace boo. This is my like brother, Ramon. And he's like, yo, I'm working for this Trap Star brand. They're doing Paris Fashion Week. Pull up. I'm like, what? Bro, you know what? Just if you're serious, tell me. I'll pull up. Calls me like 2 weeks later. Goes, yo, we're going Monday. I'm like, all right, cool. I pull up, hop on the plane, go to Paris. And we go to the show. And they're launching their collaboration with Puma. So we're there. I'm watching the show. You know, what's her name? I feel bad for forgetting her name. Beautiful black model from Toronto. Winnie Harlow. Winnie's the main of the show. So I never met Winnie before. So we ended up kicking it because me, Ramal, and two other people ended up kicking it because we're all from Toronto over there, you know, chilling in Paris, having a good time. And then I met the guy from Puma at the fashion show. And I was like, I had a brief convo with him. I was like, yo, man, what up? Like, what do you do? I knew he already worked for Puma, but I'm trying to like, you know.
You got to do those things.
You know what I mean?
You got to break the ice.
Yeah, because I seen everyone talking to him. I'm like, that's the boss for sure. So I go up to him. I was like, "What's up, bro?" He goes, "What do you do?" I work for Puma, bro. I'm like, "What do you think?" You know, I do all the brand partnerships. I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." I'm like, "Yeah, how did this whole Trapster thing come about?" He started telling me. He goes, "He's happy." Blah blah blah. Okay, cool. So me and him exchange information. We hang out over the week because now it's just Paris Fashion Week. We're all in the same places. I come back, so we talk about no business. We're just like he's telling me his story. I'm just listening. So we leave Paris. I come home to Toronto. I tell my team, "Yo, we're gonna do a shoot with Puma." It's like, what? You got us a Puma deal? This is crazy, blah, blah, blah. Like, when do we do it? I'm like, nah. I'm just telling you it's going to happen. I don't know. I don't know when.
I don't know the specifics.
But I'll put it out in the air.
You got to manifest it, right?
Exactly. And they're like, oh. And, they're like, oh. Whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then fast forward a year later, Caravana weekend. I'm, every Saturday, Caravana is very dear to me. Every Saturday, I'm on the parade route. Okay. You know what I mean?
I've never been to Caravana.
Oh, you're wild.
I actually wanted to go this year, and then COVID happened. Wild. But I've actually never been.
That's my favorite part of living in Toronto.
Word, eh?
Yeah.
That is Toronto.
Yeah, cool. Exactly. So I leave the parade earlier. I'm like, I'm gonna go back to the shop before it gets busy. So I leave the parade and walk. You've never been, but the long walk down Dufferin, go all the way, get to the store, and I walk in the store, and there's guys in there. Older guy, black guy, fly. I'm like, this guy's not from here. I could just tell right away when someone's American guy. He comes up to me, he goes, yo, I'm looking for Jebril Fresh. I was like, what's up? That's me. He goes, oh, yo, I really wanted to congratulate you on all your success. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, what's up? Like what's going on? He goes, yeah, I've been asking about a lot of people out here, like who we should work with and like who's the guy out here. And I've been doing my research for the past year and everyone points to you. I'm like, okay, cool. So what do you do? Man pulls out his card. He goes, yo, I work for Puma. I handle all brand partnerships for North America.
That's
because
crazy.
We want to do a sneaker with you. Wow. I looked to the sky. I said, man.
How did that feel? To not be a rapper, to not be a ball player, and to have your own sneaker?
It never really kicked in like it took a while. Like I didn't tell anybody for like a month and a half.
Word, I would have called my girl straight away. Like, yo,
I was
You
like,
wanted to make sure it was for sure.
I just want to make sure, you know what I mean? Like, I just wanted to make sure everything was legit.
Yeah.
And then like he was like, yo, I'll call you. We'll fly you to Boston and we'll do the deal because Puma headquarters on this side of the world's in Boston. I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm thinking in a month he's gonna call me. 2 months passed, no call. 3 months, month. So I said, okay, so it was a cat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was just cat.
Good thing I didn't tell
Yeah, you know what
nobody.
I mean? And then I get the call. Yo, what's up, man? Sorry to leave you hanging. This is me. Blah, 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 whatever. Can you guys come to Boston next week? And we'll go over everything. I'm like, so then I'm like, yo. Remember I told you we're going to do this Puma shoe? And one of my guys who's with me, he was an intern. Like he came, his dream was to design a shoe. And when I brought him on, I'm like, yo, I told him like, yo, 1000% you're going to drive the shoe. I didn't know how the hell we were going to do it. But I'm like, whatever, I'll figure it out. That's just the type of person I am. So we flew to Boston, whatever, long story short, we did the sneaker with them and that was the sneaker deal. So from then I just realized I'm like, cool, you just, you got to manifest things, keep the vision alive, keep grinding in whatever you're doing and build that up. And then once I started to understand how to work with these people, because it was different, right? My relationship with Remy was very like, it was like working with a family member. It was easy. Yeah, do what you want. We'll figure it out. You know what I mean? Like as long as you don't mess up, we're good. Yeah. Working with Puma was very different.
Okay.
Right?
A little more structure?
There's layers.
Okay.
Right? You want to talk to one person, there's 9 people you got to talk to before them. Like everything, like you want to change from black to gray, it's going through a whole system, all that. So it taught me a lot. I didn't really know anything about that corporate structure. So from there, what I'll say to you, sorry for the long-winded explanation.
We here.
But yeah, from there, I'll say to you, for people who are trying to build brand partnerships, what I would do is really Google and YouTube people who have done brand partnerships, really try to like figure out, the steps and like the deliverables for a lot of these things. You know what I mean? Like figure out how to like create a presentation, like go on canva.com and make a little, it's easy, it's free, make a little presentation and like put like, your who, what, why, where, when, how, what you want to do, why you want to work with this company. And I would say the number one thing is everyone comes to me like I'm the Remy guy. I'm the brand. I got this party idea. I want to do a Remy. And like, the ones who I'm like, you're not really there. And the ones who I see like, okay, yeah, you really want this? I'll give them the game. I'm like, yo, no company wants a one-off. Nobody wants a one-off. You know what I'm saying? If a developer or someone comes over, you guys developers, someone comes to you with a plan, like you don't want to hear one. You want to be like, nah, I got a program.
Yeah. It's a marathon.
I got a program. So I tell them like, yo, the best thing to do is if you want to work with an alcohol brand, any type of brand, come up with a program. Let that company know like, yo, this investment isn't for a one-time shot. If you're a event planner, party promoter, whatever, I got these 12 events planned for the year. This is the demographic. These are the venues. This is the whole vibe of it. This is everything. Package all that up. And then come up with the reason why that company should invest into these events. Put that all in there. Put your deck together. And then present that. If you don't know how to make a budget, Google YouTube. I say Google and YouTube is the greatest thing in the world. You know what I mean? I'm a high school dropout. I never went to any school.
That's literally a school in itself.
YouTube and Google, everything.
Yeah.
So put that together and just pitch. You know what I mean? If you're in a brand, like for me, I know if you guys are going to do a real estate event for all your top 100 clients, in my head, I'd be like, okay, who's our top 100 clients? Let's make a list of that. Let's put like, maybe it's net worth, maybe it's not net worth, maybe it's what they control. You put that together like, yo, we're going to do something like this. Every Christmas, we're going to do a Christmas party for the next 5 years. These are the type of people who are going to be here. So if I'm working with big money clients, I'm going to go after a big money sponsor. So I'm going to plug Remy, Louis XIII, the best high-end luxury cognac in the world.
There is, yeah.
It's like $4,000 a bottle, no?
Yeah, the price just increased this year.
Okay.
So I'm going to hit them up and be like, look, I know you guys need to be in front of these type of people, right? And I need to offer something to my people that your competition, they can, but they're not thinking like that.
Value.
Exactly. So you put that together, it makes sense. You pitch it like, look, this is what we need. We want some product, we want some budget to create the experience. Maybe you guys were going to do it I'm just not saying you would do this, but you're doing it at a banquet hall. And you were just going with the regular dressings in there. You picture Louis, no, we want to create a different type of experience. So we want, when you walk in the space,
different.
This is what it looks like. Yeah. We want a valet service. We want, you know what I mean? Like a concierge service. You know, like, okay, this is my brand. I'm this luxury brand. This is what I want to offer. This is this luxury brand. This is what they want to offer. And if we had a baby together, what would that baby look like? And that's that event. And that's that pitch that you're going to give to them.
No, that's key. Our last event we actually had at Hotel X. It was like a rooftop event. We had it last year just as a launch for our project that we do in Niagara. And just that experience on a whole. They come in the valet and we're on the rooftop, and it just makes it's a memorable experience that people will never forget. And I think that's important when building a brand. Like a lot of people feel like in terms of starting a clothing brand, they can just take a logo, slap it on a t-shirt, and that's a brand. You know what I mean? Like, what are some elements of a brand? Because like we've talked in other episodes about, you know, Starbucks and Apple and Jordan, and what really the elements are that make people line up for outside a store for a week. Is it, you know, the brand ambassadors that you have? Is it certain influencers? Like, what do you feel like are some elements that really make a successful brand?
It's a combination of some of the things that you were speaking of. I'd say brand values. You know, what does your brand stand for? What are you representing? What are you doing this for? Like, why is somebody investing? Because everything is an investment, right? Some people look at things like, oh, it's just a t-shirt. No, it's an investment. You know, we sell a $60 white tee. That's an investment. Like, why are people building this? So what's the brand value? I'll tell you, you can buy my $60 white tee and you can wash it 100 times and it's not going to shrink on you. The color's not going to fade on you. It's going to fit the same. It's long lasting. That's important to me. You know what I mean, as a person, because I don't want to sell you something, you wear it 1 or 2 times, and you're like, oh, this is trash. Like, I'm not buying nothing from that.
And the experience is ruined.
Exactly. So brand value, I say, is number one. What are you bringing to the table? You know what I mean? What is different? And you don't even have to be different than everyone else, but you have to deliver it different to everyone else, right? So I say brand value is number one. Next to that is, you know, your marketing initiatives, which everything ties back to the brand values. Your influencer is going to tie back. You're not going to use an influencer that doesn't mesh with your brand values. So I feel like once you figure out what your brand values are, what your brand represents, whether it's quality, whether it's, you know, we represent, you know, basketball players or whatever it is. Like for me, it's like Get Fresh. We're the brand that represents Toronto globally. So we like to work with influencers and brand ambassadors who are representing our city and our country abroad. You know, they're the real pillars of our country. When you think of, Winnie Harlow, you think of, she's a pillar of Toronto. So that's a person that I would want to work with as a brand ambassador to push that. And someone else would be like, oh, okay, cool, I get this. I like Toronto, I like the vibe, I hear so much about it. You've built this like brand that represents the city. So that's what we did. You know, that's what we focus on. That's what we did, the YYZ hat and all that. So for anyone who's trying to build a brand, just figure out what your value is. What are you bringing to the table? Why should people invest in you? And think long and hard about that. Don't just think about the quick buck, unless that's what you want to do. If you're just like, yo, I'm in here to just do a quick in and out, then do your quick in and out. If you're trying to get some longevity, then your core brand values are very important.
Also, I think building a brand, integrity is important. 100%. And especially with you guys pride yourselves on your integrity. There were certain qualities that your brand had that not many people did. I remember having your tee, and I was telling you off camera, the long drop tees. Yeah. And they did last a very long time. Like quality-wise, it was amazing. You know, and you were also telling me about how you didn't cut corners, you didn't take some cheap China product, and you developed it locally. What was that process like?
I'm gonna say one thing, just because everyone says cheap China product.
Okay.
Which is fine, because it's not fine, but I understand it because people don't really take it in, but this side of the world marketed China to be cheap product, to keep jobs in
domestically.
Exactly.
Here.
But to be honest with you, some of the best manufacturers in the world are in China, right? Yeah. You're talking about 60, 70 years of doing this craft. It's inevitable. You know what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
You're going to be the greatest at this.
For sure.
There's just different levels of it. You want to cheap out, you can cheap out. But if you want the good stuff, then you'll get it. But
it's hard to find the good ones too.
It is, because most brands, it comes back to the integrity and the value. For me, I'm the face of my brand. I stamp. I touch anything, any piece of clothing that anyone's ever had with my label on it has gone through my hands. I've touched it personally.
Of course, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm not gonna be in the grocery store and you're gonna pull up on me and be like, "Yo,
Wagwan.
I bought this T-shirt
Wagwan.
for $60," and it was just, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not gonna do that. Like, I want to stand behind everything that I put out. And you know, sometimes we have errors and as well as that, but we'll correct it right away. You know what I mean? So it goes. You could buy a Lamborghini, and there's going to be a recall on it because something happened, but at least they recalled it. You know what I'm saying? You got to respect that. So I just wanted to say that because a lot of people just think China is like trash. In terms of making clothing in Canada, very hard thing to navigate. Your MOQs, your minimum order quantities are much higher. Your cost is much higher, right? We're at like, what, a $15 minimum wage? So you got to think someone's getting paid $15
an hour
to sew. That's going to drive your cost up.
For sure.
Right? Finding materials. We don't do a lot of trade with China in terms of fashion and textiles. So finding certain materials is really tough. That's why I made my fabric. Like, we make all our own fabric. All of our knits, any t-shirt, any sweater you buy from us, we start literally from yarn.
Okay.
From yarn, they spin the yarn, it turns into the roll of fabric. Yeah. We wash the fabric, we dye the fabric, then we create the garment. You know what I mean? There's a process to it. So it's a lot harder to do it. Back in the day when we were kids, this used to be a hub. Here in Montreal, used to be a manufacturing hub. Like Fashion District, Queen Street used to be where everyone bought all the fashion. All the textile. Yeah. And then on Richmond and Adelaide was all the factories and all those old buildings. So we come from that. Yeah. But, you know, when everybody ran over to overseas and offshore manufacturing, it really killed our business, right? And our cost of living, everything went up. It just didn't really make sense, you know? But COVID, I'd say, is bringing that back because Canada exposed themselves, right? We need PPE. Where are we getting the PPE from? Now we're going to China to get it from them, and we're getting robbed. I don't know if you read them stories. Like, we're getting ordering containers, and other countries are coming and outbidding us for these containers. And we're like, you know, we're not a major business player in the world. You know what I mean? Greatest country, but we're not a major business player. So we're always taking third place, fourth place, fifth place. Right. And, you know, the federal government and provincial governments realized, like, yo, we need to bring this back. So they did a lot of tax cuts for all these manufacturers and helped them out.
I saw 3M got like a huge mandate and stuff.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like we were getting bullied out of 3M. 3M's stuff is made in Canada.
Yeah, imagine.
And we're taking the back seat to something that's domestically made.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Tough. But people don't, the problem is like the real hard thing about making things here is, one, the people who are manufacturing here 9 times out of 10 are used to just making one type of garment. You know, it's a simple garment. The most technical thing they probably do is probably like Canada Goose. You know what I mean? But so it's hard to find, like, in China, they're quick. They're really, really fast to, like, they adapt fast. You know what I'm saying? So they get it. They're always thinking of, okay, what's next? They're watching everything that's going on. Canada's a little bit slower. We have really amazing sewers, but we don't adapt as much. We're not paying attention to what's going on with the trends and all that.
Yeah, it's not a big industry for us.
It's not a big industry, but now you're starting to get some of the younger players get into the manufacturing business this year. Thank God, because there was some upside of COVID, was that. But your difficult thing here is people don't understand price, right? So when people were like, when I first came out with my t-shirt, $60. Why would I spend $60 on a white tee? I'm like, bro, it's made in Canada. So make it in China. Like, you know what I mean? They don't get it. I'm like, yo, I'm trying to bring you a quality product. We're keeping jobs here on our land, and, you know, we're building up our industry. So it took a long time for people to understand that, you know, why is Canadian product so expensive? It's just the costs involved. Like, you know, real estate costs in Toronto. Imagine, you know, having a manufacturing plant in Toronto, how much that's costing you just in overhead. You know what I mean? Never mind, you didn't put in your jobs yet. You didn't put in all that, you know, all that yet. So it's hard. It's very hard. But I push it. You know, I do make our garments a little bit of everywhere. This year we've been making everything domestically. But I do make offshore. I do make in China. I do make in Portugal. I do make in Turkey. I like to spread it around. I like put all my eggs in one basket because everyone has different specialties.
Yeah. That's what's up, man. Before we let you go, I want you to just kind of like rewind a little bit, tell us a little bit about your come up story, because, you know, we know you started from the trunk and then you went to having like a flagship store. Like, can you take us a little bit in between, like that in between process and how we went from A to B?
Yeah. So I'll say this, started from high school. childhood dream. I want to have a store. Worked my butt off every single day. I hustled. I worked at Tim Hortons. That was a little bit after, but once I moved, my mom passed away when I was 15 years old. So this is first semester, grade 10. She passed away on the Friday. I tried to go back to school on a Monday. By Wednesday, I was like, yo, there's no way in hell I could do this. I just wasn't there. And my life changed dramatically. You know what I mean? I was like limbo on where I was living in between family. There's so much going on. There was so much, I have a little sister. It was just rough for me. So from there, the only thing, I read this quote the other day. They say, black man deal with trauma by trying to get rich. Funniest thing ever. So I was in that state of my life. Like, yo, I'm just gonna make money. Because
that's gonna solve all problems. I used to think that as well growing up. Like, I grew up broke, moved 36 times, and I'm just thinking, once I get the bag, all the problems will be fixed.
Yeah, no. There's more problems. It's easier to be broke.
More money, more problems.
Ask niece.
Yeah, exactly. So, I went from putting my mindset on, like, I worked at Tim Hortons, saved all my checks, stacked my money up. I used to sell CDs out, and I would manufacture CDs and I'd sell them in like packs, and I would like have a distribution set up where it's like I'd have guys in every high school with packs selling CDs, and like that was my like, I listen to the music. They're like talking about rapping about drugs. I'm thinking about whatever product I'm selling, and I'm just taking in the game.
Apply those principles.
Exactly, right. And I'm watching the Pablo Escobar movies, and I'm like, I'm gonna be like Pablo, like not on like the cocaine thing, but like on everything else. And I started with CDs, and then rolled that into clothing, and then from clothing. In that era, life got real crazy. This is Year of the Gun in Toronto. Toronto was like, it's still wild now, but it was a crazy year, you know what I mean? And I moved to Mississauga, and I met this guy named Adiel Papa, and he really changed my life. Filipino guy, he was into manufacturing. Everyone knows The Secret, the Oprah production, The Secret. Yeah. So he manufactured the DVD for The Secret.
Oh, wow.
And I remember when I met up with him, he had like a briefcase, he had a business card. I'm like 17 years old. I never met anybody with a briefcase unless you were like a banker or a doctor.
Yeah.
And he's the one who introduced me to this program called the Remix Project, right? And I remember when I went to the Remix Project for the first time, I was like, I'm not really with it. It's like some white guys with a bunch of like underprivileged black kids, and like, I just can't relate. Like, I can't talk to these guys. I can't really relate. But then I got to know them. Addy convinced me to sign up for the project, and I got in. I think it was round 3, the greatest round 3. And, I worked with Gavin, Drex, T-Rex, 40, Brian Espiritu. All these guys were the program leaders. And these guys were running this program, helping all these kids in terms of like, how to achieve your goals and how to get your life going, and how to get out the situation you're in and put you in a better situation while they're doing it themselves, right? Like 40 is Drake's engineer. Like when I was at Remix, they recorded So Far Gone in the room beside I was working in. So we got to see the whole, like, I'd say like the real Toronto come up. So from Remix Project, their whole thing was you have to get like an internship. They're gonna pair you with someone who's gonna help you in your career. So I worked with these 2 girls called Bossy Girls. They were wardrobe stylists. I did not want to be a stylist. I just want to sell clothes. But my boy's like, yo, work with them. Trust me, it'll teach you a lot. Worked with them, phenomenal ladies, Caitlin and Villy. And they were doing everything at the time. Every music video, photo shoot, corporate, doesn't matter what it is. So I worked with them for about 5 or 6 months. I learned the game. I'm a really fast learner. Learned the game, then I started styling myself, just like doing my own jobs. I ended up linking up with Sal, which was CP Records and now XO Records. And I worked with Sal and Belly and Mazzari and Manny for about 1.5 years. We worked beside each other, and I focused heavily on them, like controlling everything with them. Sal taught me a lot of things as a kid, how to, deal with emails, and how to, when we're in these board meetings, like how to conduct myself and all that. And I always thank him for that. So it went from that to me going to LA to go and like just kind of see what's out there. And then I got this plug on snapback hats. This is when snapbacks just kind of like came back in the mix.
Yeah, I remember that.
And there was a factory who made everyone snapbacks, Supreme, Diamond Supply. Like I didn't even know what Supreme was. I'm not even gonna lie, back then. And I would buy all these hats at a bulk price. They were all samples. So I'm like, I came back to Toronto. I was literally like, felt like Pablo, smuggling all these bags, flying my boys to LA. And I'm like, yo, you got to bring this over the border. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then I remember being in my ex-girl's crib with like the hats all over the table. Me and my boy, I had like a
Felt like
whiteboard. Yeah, I had a whiteboard. Like, yo, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna promote at every single summer school. We need to know the summer school times, what time they let out, and like I created literally like you thought we were going to war.
Yeah, it was a blueprint.
Yeah, like if you came in a room, you're like, are these guys going to war? Like, what's going on? And I did a pop-up shop before it was called a pop-up shop. So back in the day, there was this guy named Matt George. He was really a major pillar in Toronto who built the fashion industry, Nomad, Stussy, Goodfoot. Right? So Goodfoot closed, and Jake, who was the Weeknd's manager at the time, this is when the whole House of Balloons started bubbling. It's crazy. Like, I got to see the whole come up of the city.
You have front row seats.
Yeah. So he had a little store. I forget what it was called. It was a vintage store. And then I was like, told my boy, yo, I want a store. He goes, yo, you can rent this store for the weekend. I'm like, perfect. Rented that store for the weekend. I did all this promo for like 2-3 weeks, put together a whole team, and then we did this pop-up. We probably brought out about 5,000 people to this pop-up.
Word.
This is pre-Instagram, like, you know what I mean?
That's unheard of.
Yeah, and it was the first time I made like real money from this business, like one shot, like big chunk. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, okay.
You're onto something.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And then I rolled with that. You know, I did a pop-up in Montreal, pop-up in Edmonton, and I kind of rolled with that. And I was like, okay, cool, we're on a roll, we'll build that. Try to launch an online store. We launched it on Friday the 13th. I really believe that day's bad luck because that day is the day Canada Post went on strike. So we had about 700 orders. Couldn't get any of them.
No way.
But I'm the type of person, I always find a solution. I rented a truck, filled that up, and I drove across to Niagara Falls, New York, and shipped them all through the Niagara, like USPS. I was determined. So that was a stage in my life. And then I tried to open another store. I tried to open my first store. It was not even a store, it was a creative space. It was me, Photo Will in Brooklyn, Devon Charles. We were gonna do this creative space in Liberty Village, photo studio, barbershop, clothing store. Long story short, the landlord screwed us over. We were 3 non-educated kids on how to do business deals on that level. And the guy really swindled us and we lost a bunch of money. And I went to Atlanta because my homegirl was living there. And then I got a phone call one day like, yo, my name is Bruce. I heard you're trying to open up a store. I've got a store on Queen Street and I don't really want any competition. Like, why don't we just work together? So I didn't tell them that I already lost the store. I was like, yeah, no problem. I'll be there in a couple of days. I packed my bag, left Atlanta, went back. We had the deal and he gave me like a shop. So I had like a rack in his store. That's how it started. And then that turned into, you know, that running for about 8-9 months to me taking the whole place over. And then that's what birthed Get Fresh.
Wow.
That's an amazing story, brother. So we always end off every episode with a book. If you don't mind sliding that over to me, Mr. Twee Estate. So this book is called Built to Last. I know you said you listen to a lot of audio books.
Yes.
Me too, because I'm on the road as well.
Yeah.
Most companies, small businesses in the first 2 years, they can't make it. You know, and you've been able to build a business over the past 8 years that's been able to stand the test of time. And that's pretty much what this book is about. It's called Built to Last. So, you know, there's a lot of things that open up today and tomorrow, but like you said, like you have to have that blueprint. You have to have that vision. You have to be able to manifest it. You've been able to make certain partnerships and network with certain people to be able to get to the levels that you're getting to today. So I really appreciate you coming through, blessing us with your presence. In closing, do you have like a favorite quote or anything that you live by that you just kind of wanted to close out on?
There's a couple things that I live by. I would say this, because I know a lot of people, especially right now, you know, it's difficult times. And just because you're in a difficult position, it doesn't mean that you're going to always be in this difficult position. You know what I mean? As hard as things seem right now, you know what I mean? Just keep your head down, keep your eyes on the prize, keep grinding, push through it. There's always a way. You're going to have dark days, but I promise, as corny as it sounds, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. I'm definitely an example of that.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up, man. This is another episode of the Millennials to Millionaire podcast. I'm Daniel King Sold.
I'm Twee Estate.
Thanks for tuning in. All
right, take care. Thank you.